Hey there! Whether you're coming from Enfield or a long-time player of Arknights, you might find the story of Arknights to be pretty intimidating. You don't know where to start, you're seeing hundreds of story notes, each one having thousands of words to read. I want to help you discover Arknights' story and lore more easily, while also making it more enjoyable, with a community tool that I've made. Link is in the description plus pinned comment, and let me show you in this video. So I've made this tool on Canva and it displays all the stories that you can read within Arknights. Doesn't include the character-specific stories, but just the main and side stories that you can still read in the archives. I will take you through this but let's first start off with the reading advice. First thing to note is that you do not have to start from the main story. You might think it's important for world building or understanding the chronology of the game, but you seriously don't have to. Especially for the fact that some people might find the main story to be uninteresting to read. Personally, I struggled to get through chapters 0 to 4. It was quite a bit of a slog and the writing wasn't very good. If those were the first few stories that I've read, I don't think I will have a good impression for anything that happens later on. The writing could be described as weaker, the story may be more long-winded and not having a sufficient grounding. And if you started reading that first, you might have a bad impression that the later story of Arknights is the same. So we don't want to kill any passion in discovering the good writing in Arknights. So instead of the main story, I would suggest that you consider picking a faction, character, or specific story that you are interested in. If you have a faction or region that you're interested in, like Syracuse, Litania, then what you can do is to start from the beginning of the desired faction. See what is the first story in sequence and you read from there. If you have a character that you like, then you can locate the stories that the character is in and begin from the earliest required story. You can use the website Arknights Wiki to locate the characters that you like. So for instance, if you enjoy Project Red, you go to the story section and then you scroll down and you can see their order of appearance. In this case, it mentions that it's in episode 6, Dorsa's Holiday, Il Siracusano and Pototori that you shall see her story. So you just need to start from whatever is first. Perhaps you might be interested in Ea Fiela because of Adelia and Enfield. So same thing, you can come into her story tab and then you can see her order of appearance. You start from wherever that she first appears if you're that interested in her. Lastly, you might not be here for a specific faction or character, but instead you've heard from people that certain stories are bangers, like for example, Lone Trail or Babel. But you can't just straight away dive in the story without the context. So pick the stories that you're very interested in and then figure out if they have any prerequisites. So read those first before you get to this story that you've been longing for. An additional note, some of you might be keen to read Arknight's story, but you don't have any interest in the game. You might say that Tower Defense is not for you and you don't want to download it just yet. If that were the case, do note that there is an Arknights story reader online. You search it up and it archives all the story of Arknights, from the main story, the side story. Pick out the event that you are interested to read and then you can read it in sequence. Alright, before we get to the timeline matters, how to use this tool. The white arrows that you see will mean that the story before is compulsory for you to read. Blue arrow means the story before has good context, but if you want to choose skip it, you can do so. Optional means it's not necessary for you to read. It might not feel like it adds much value to your understanding of Arknights. You might feel like it's just a story experience. Then collab stories are also optional. Community favorites for the start are the ones that people rave about a lot. And then for the hearts, it's going to be my personal recommendation. I need to preface that I've not read every single story of Arknights yet. I think I'm about halfway through. So the recommendations are those that I've really enjoyed. Perhaps there are more stories that I would enjoy, but I've not read them yet. So that's why not all the stories have hearts scattered everywhere. So let's take on the advice that I've stated. Perhaps you've heard about the horses in this game, and in that case you're looking at the Kazimirian stories. So you zoom into Kazimierz and you can see that there is no prerequisite for you to start the first story of this region. So you can begin from Mariano and read it all in sequence unaffected. Maybe you're interested in Hoshiguma and you want to read the event that she's a part of. In this case, you're going to Higashi looking for Ato. You can see that there is a sequence of events, but there is a blue arrow in between, meaning that if you do not read So Long Adele, you can live without it to enjoy Ato's story on its own. So go ahead to do that. Maybe you're very interested in Zwillingstrom, a very specific event in Leteria, and if you zoom in towards it, you'll see that there's a lot of white arrows pointing in, meaning they're all very compulsory for context. So you do have to make sure that you have read all of them before you can finally get into this story. Some regions have their stories completely unconnected, meaning they are just separate storylines for you to enjoy, and if you want to just see it for itself, you can do so. For example, if you're hearing about the Sui siblings, you don't need any main story prerequisite or other regions as well. It's all on its own, just a neat line for you to read. There are some regions that only have a singular story appearing and also doesn't need pre-context, so you can enjoy them themselves. If you're here wanting to see some connection to Enfield, you can actually see it because the game has already written a storyline for it. So in that case, go to the Sami region, you can see a bit of sequence of lines, read it in order if you want, or if not, just start isolatedly in Sami alone. As you've seen from the way I've made this tool, I've also placed the genre. Arknight stories are known to be very thematic, especially to the specific region. So perhaps you might have genres that you like for yourself, which is pretty much how I've started to choose the stories that I read. For instance, if we zoom into this part of the map, you can see that Sargon's about adventure, Latania is about drama and music, and Laterano is faith and discrimination. You might have your own preference to what kind of stories you want to read, so if you'd like to do so, pick out the ones that fits your taste. If you recall, I've mentioned that the stars are community favorites like So Long Adele to the left, and hearts are my personal recommended. I do suggest to use these recommendations to be faster at discovering the good writings in Arknights. That way, you can understand why a lot of us do enjoy Arknight stories. It did take me quite some time to create this timeline and make it so concise and neat to look at, so I do hope I'm easing some of your pain when it comes to reading the AK story and hopefully being faster at finding out your own favorites. As I've mentioned, I've not read every single Arknight storyline, so over time, if I do have new favorites, I am actually going to update this link to include more of my favorites. You're going to see more hearts being in place, and there is an update that you see over here. So I will change this date whenever I make some changes. That also means that in the future, when new stories are added into the global space, I will also update what the sequence will look like. Meaning to say, this is an adaptable link, so save it for yourself if you'd like. I sincerely hope that this will be a great help to the community, and if you have stories that you're so excited to talk about to people, put your recommendations in the comments and maybe you're helping someone else discover where they should go in AK storyline. That's all for this video. I do read all Arknight stories live on my streams and they're all archived as well. If you want to join in on the experience, you can click on the videos over there. In the future, I will want to write some video essays on the stories that I really enjoy. So subscribe to look forward to that, and I'll see you in another video. Bye bye.